speaking of Star Wars, so let's talk about a movie with a 3-act structure and see how it works. Everybody here seen the original Star Wars, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, pretty easy. If you haven't seen it, then wow, okay, you're pretty amazing. If you haven't seen it by now, don't see it, because then you could be in this perfect bubble where you're not involved in Star Wars until the mouse finds out and hunts you down and forces you with little locks on your eyes to watch it nonstop. Okay, so Star Wars has the 3-act structure. So George Lucas, this is partially why this was such a successful movie. George Lucas, like I said, he's a great filmmaker, not a great director. He wrote this. He's not even a great screenwriter, but he knew a couple things. He knew, okay, I'm going to use the hero's journey to tell this story. I'm basically going to go look through humanity's past, and look at all the great stories and the great components of storytelling through all eras of humanity, all of those great fables, all the myths, the legends, everything that we as humans tell each other to entertain these great stories about life. And I'm going to pluck the best stuff of those and I'm going to weave them together in a story. I'm going to retell the same story, but what I'm going to do different is I'm going to tell it in a completely different universe, a different world that no one's seen before. So it's okay to tell the same story over again, the hero's journey, but I'm telling it in a point of view and a perspective that nobody's seen. And that's what's made it incredible. It's not, the story structure is pretty bad. If you actually read the script, if you really look at, break down Star Wars now and look at it, it's not that great of a movie. The acting is not even that awesome, but it's the parts may not have been amazing, but it's the sum of the parts that brought together that made this thing such an amazing film. In fact, if we compare it to the other two, the best movie of those prequels is going to be Empire Strikes Back. That's probably one of the best sequels of all time because of what they did in that movie, such as didn't retell the same story. They made it go dark. They did all this stuff that you would not, wouldn't follow the hero's journey properly, and it made it work that was probably one of the few successful sequels, in my opinion. So let's look at Star Wars. Okay, so 3 acts. So Act 1. So if you remember the whole story, right? We start off with the Princess Leia being chased by Darth Vader, right? With plans. Darth Vader catches the ship. They grab, that puts the plans in R2-D2, the robot. And from spoiler alert, I'm sorry, but that's the deal. So droids go to Tatooine and get lost, get caught by the Jawas, and then basically get sold to Luke and his family. And so that's all that stuff's the setup of this whole thing. And then so what's the conflict? The first conflict here is going to be with struggle. It's going to, Luke wants to leave the farm. He wants to go and join the rebellion, but he can't because his uncle needs help. So he can't leave the farm yet. All his friends have left. That's one of his first problems, and that's the setup of who he is. And so the first conflict is going to, the inciting incident is going to be what? Anybody take a guess if you know that story? What's the inciting element that happens in Act 1, the incident? What's going to change his path?
Is it his aunt and uncle getting murdered?
Mm-hmm. So up to that point, remember he meets Ben Kenobi, who's Obi-Wan, gives him the message, and he's like, "You must come with me and learn the Force." That whole spiel there, and he's like, "I can't take you there. I can take you as far as Anchorhead, and that's all I can do. You can get a transport from there." I think that's his lines. So he's like, "You must do what you feel is right," right? All that stuff happens. So here's Obi-Wan telling him he needs to come with him. He needs to move on with his life, but he won't do it because he can't leave his family. And so the inciting incident is going to be when he goes back home and finds out that the Empire has murdered his uncle and his aunt and killed them. So he comes back and he says, "There's nothing left for me now. Now I want to join you." So that's the first thing that sets this path into motion. So obviously they go to Mos Eisley. They meet Han Solo and Chewbacca. They book flight on the Millennium Falcon. And of course, what's the other incident there? So there's a little spy there that identifies the droids. And as they're getting ready to leave, they're gonna take off and blast off, and as the fight's about to start. That's one end. There's also the other element. We start seeing Han Solo's character. He gets caught by Greedo, right, and ends up killing him, even though he shot first. And that's gonna help us set up who that character is. So once they blast off from Mos Eisley, they're trying to go back to the planet Alderaan. What they don't know is because Alderaan has been blown up by the Death Star, right? Because they used it as a test for the Death Star and trying to get Princess Leia to tell them where the plans are. All that stuff happens. So Act 2 is basically them going. They leave Mos Eisley, they get into space, and when they get to Alderaan, it's not there. And so now comes all the troubles and problems they're going to have. So Act 2 starts with them getting there. There's no Mos Eisley. I'm sorry, there's no Alderaan. Well, there's my first problem happening. Then, oh, there's a TIE fighter that's here. How did it follow us? Nope, they chased a TIE fighter. Oh no, there's a moon, a small moon. That's no moon, that's a space station. Boom, they get caught in there and get captured by the Death Star. Now they're in there. Now it becomes all the obstacles they got to get through, right? I got to find out how to turn off the tractor beam to escape. So Obi-Wan's got to go do that. Tells them to stay together. They're in that little control room. What happens? They realize that Princess Leia is there. She's going to be scheduled to die. Well, we can't let her die. She's the one who sent us on this mission. Okay, we got to rescue her. Convinces Han Solo to get a huge reward if they do it. So they try and figure out a way to do it. They get to the detention center. There, they end up blowing up and fighting, killing everybody. Then they rescue her. They start getting into another battle. They go into the trash compactor. All these things are different little obstacles they have to get past. Everything gets worse and worse. So they keep going and going until what is the final all is lost moment? It's at the very end of that act when they're running to the Millennium Falcon and Obi-Wan Kenobi basically fights Darth Vader and Darth Vader kills him. So that death point there is all about the end of Act 2. And that's the all is lost moment, right? Because he sacrifices his life, lets Darth Vader kill him. They escape on the ship. They get out. They get past the Death Star. They battle some of the TIE fighters, and then they finally get away. And boom, they're going back to the Rebel base, or going to the Rebel base. And that's when we get the moment where, Grand Moff Tarkin's like, "Are you sure the homing beacon's attached to their ship? I'm taking a great risk, Vader. It better work." And of course, now the Death Star is going to follow them. So this whole thing sets up all his lost moment. You see Luke all upset in there, upset that he lost him, can't believe he's gone, and all this stuff happens while they're on the Millennium Falcon. Then they finally get to the Rebel base. Now we're starting, the beginning of Act 3. So all is lost, right? So now they know. Well, they're trying to figure out how to defeat the Death Star. They figure out there's a one in a million chance to defeat it. They now realize the Death Star is coming to them. So it's all still bad. It's all getting downhill further. They escaped the Death Star, and now it's here. It's almost ready to blow up the planet that they're all on, to destroy the whole rebellion. Everything just gets worse and worse. So what are they going to do? They're going to grab in their small ships and they're going to go and try to defeat the Death Star. There's going to be all these battles that happen there. Luke's going to be, all his wingmen are going to die. He's going to be by himself, and he's basically going to be at this point where it's him versus Darth Vader in the trench, he's trying to stop him from destroying the Death Star. He's trying to destroy the Death Star. So at that moment, that's where all, at the very end of the movie, but here's the moment at the end, right before he blows up the Death Star, that Luke really sees the big picture. What happens at that moment? Anybody take a guess what that moment is? That aha moment, that awakening moment in Luke Skywalker?
Is it when Darth Vader reveals that he's his father?
No, that's the second movie. So this whole point that is the subplot, one of the themes in the movie is technology versus faith. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi, is one of the last Jedis. It's all about his religion, about faith in this thing you can't see or feel, the Force, right? Han Solo's like, I don't believe in that stuff. I've never seen it. I'll take a trusty blaster any day over my, a sword, a lightsaber. So this whole yin and yang about technology is the only way to go versus faith in something you can't see or believe in. And so Luke is kind of caught in the middle of these two things. So after Obi-Wan's killed, he starts occasionally hearing his voice in his head. So at the very end of the movie, they're using the, they have to shoot this little proton torpedo thing into an air shaft or a heat shaft or something like that, very small target. So they use these computers to do it, and you have these tracking computers that do it. And then they, there's one pass from another team that tried to do it and they missed. So at the very end, as he's racing towards the end of the to where the end where this tunnel, the shaft is, he keeps hearing Ben Kenobi's voice going, Luke, trust the feelings, use the Force, trust yourself. And at the very end, he turns off the computer, and everyone's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because he only has one shot and he's about to be killed. He's almost going to be, he's got Darth Vader behind him, and he doesn't use the computer and he trusts himself. He uses the Force, and of course it happens. But right before that happens, we've got him having Darth Vader right behind him. Darth Vader is just about ready to kill him, and out of nowhere comes boom, Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon to blow them up. Now, that's another sub story, because Han Solo was always about himself. Throughout this whole story, it's been about, it's only about me, kid. I don't care. I just want my money and I'm out of here. And then when he takes them to the planet, the rebel base, he gets his money and he's like, I'm leaving. I'm done. I did my deal and I'm out of here. And so the whole struggle for him, there was another subplot, is that Han Solo finds something besides himself. He realizes there was more to life than just himself. And at the very end, when he leaves and everybody thinks he's abandoned them, he comes in, saves the day, stops Darth Vader from killing, blowing up Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. And that allows Luke Skywalker to blow up the Death Star. And then boom, the Act 3 ends with the destruction of the Death Star. And then we have the whole ceremony, happy thing at the ending. So that was basically Star Wars in a 15-minute description. But you could see clearly that there is this story structure used there almost perfectly. It's almost down to the page number of where everything should be. And it worked, because that movie was so successful that it started a whole chain reaction of a franchise. It revolutionized the whole Hollywood industry system. It changed special effects. It changed everything for Hollywood. Pretty much that movie alone is one of the big changes that happened to filmmaking as far as we know it. So if you want to know a little bit more about this, you can click this link here. And this is where I got some of this information from. This guy has this great write-up on everything. And he goes really, really deep into this thing, talking about everything that happened in there. So if you really want to check it out and intrigued, take a look and see what it's about. Questions?
Oh, I wanted to ask about the B plot or the subplot. So you were saying that love story is the most common, but what's an example of like a pretty famous film where it has a subplot that's not a romance?
Well, let me think of a couple movies. Give me a minute. Well, I guess 2001: A Space Odyssey might have a good subplot. So the main plot of the story is going, they're going to the planets around Jupiter to find out these aliens basically have been shaping us as humans, shaping our evolution. But one of the subplots in that movie is about artificial intelligence. So the main theme is this journey of man from, adventure in space and going to find these aliens that basically have kickstarted our evolution. But underneath all that is this whole interaction between man and machine, HAL 9000, the computer, where it basically becomes a murderer, and why it does that. And so I think that, to me, is like this whole interaction between the two. That's at the whole subcontext there, because throughout the thing, we realize that the two astronauts who are not frozen on the ship are starting to suspect that there's something not right with their computer that basically runs everything on the ship. It runs the whole ship. It controls the life support. It controls every single aspect of what's going on there. And this thing was they're completely supposed to trust, and at some point they don't trust it anymore. They don't suspect it. And then the machine, the computer, starts not trusting them. So this whole weird subplot there about trust and about the relationship between artificial intelligence and humans. So maybe that's the only one I can think of right now. So for you guys, this is again, like this is just a quick pass over this stuff. I mean, we could talk for weeks and months about this subject, and I'm probably not the person to go that deep into it because it's not my specialty. But I encourage you to explore it and think about it, and think about how I can adapt these ideas of this act, this hero's journey, to my stories to make them more commercial and to make them more palatable, to make them more entertaining. Because in the end, remember we've talked about this from the beginning. Our job here is to entertain people. If you're trying to create a narrative, even if you're creating a documentary, you still are trying to entertain someone, right? And that doesn't mean like making them happy. I mean, it just means captivating your audience. So there's something here in this 3-act structure in whatever genre you want to use, whether pick your favorite type of movie, horror, fantasy, love story, comedy. There's something here. Documentaries always try to do something here. All this stuff, even documentaries about animals. There was a whole point where they were weaving characters in the lions when you watch them on the prides in the Sahara. You could see them weaving the hero's journey, watching these characters who are just animals go through and change. So that's what it's really about. So when you first start out, trying to write your ideas and write stories, this blueprint is a really easy way to follow something. And then once you master it and get it down to its science, well, then you can break the rules and move on past that. Go read some other books and evolve your writing skills. Sit in some seminars. There's plenty of opportunity.